Hello, welcome to that Eurovision podcast, bringing you Eurovision with a slice of life. My name is Janek, I use any pronouns, and I will be your host for today. Today we'll be talking about the edition that happened exactly 10 years ago. Eurovision 2012 is one of the most popular editions in the Eurovision fandom, and it holds a legacy not only in the fandom but also the winner of the Eurovision 2012 is one of the most popular songs from the contest, not only within the fandom. So I would like to introduce my guests, which are...
Hi, I am Shiloh. I use he, him pronouns. And I'm happy to be here today.
Hello, my name is Euan. My pronouns are he, him, and I am super excited to be back on and talking about a year that's very dear to me.
Yeah, thank you for joining me for today. So, despite a lot of tension that led up in the contest taking part, mainly from Azerbaijan's safety and politics that are happening inside Azerbaijan, Eurovision 2012 was hosted by Azerbaijan in Baku after them winning the contest a year before with Ellen Nikki with Running Scared. 42 countries took part in 2012. Montenegro coming back, and Armenia and Poland withdrawing. Poland withdrew because of us hosting 2012 UFA and 2012 Summer Olympics, so mostly budget issues with our participations, and Armenia withdrew because they couldn't be safe inside Azerbaijan and due to the conflict that's happening with Armenia. The contest was hosted by Leila Alieva-Kurieva, Eldar Gasimov, and Nargis Petersen, Leila is a presenter, Eldar is a singer, and Nargis is a lawyer and a TV presenter. So let's give us maybe a bit of intro to the discussions. What did you think about the hosts? Do you have any opinion about the stage that was in 2012? And interval acts, did you enjoy them overall? And what did you overall thought about the contest and the legacy that it holds?
So, a lot of people, when talking about 2012, like to say that the hosts were really bad, that the actual people hosting the contest did a really bad job. I do not agree with this. I think that the hosts were fine. They were given, a reasonably funny script. I think that they just didn't speak English well enough to really nail the timing. But overall, I don't think the actual people did a bad job. I think there were some really funny bits in there, and overall, they did a good job. My main issue with 2012 is the stage. I think that the 2012 stage is probably one of the worst stages that we've had in Eurovision in the past decade, because it's so big. It's hard for artists to really fill it up. And so that makes everybody look like they have really bad stage presence. And I think that's a big reason why Loreen won in 2012, because her performance used all of these really close angles. It very rarely pulled back to show the entire stage. And I think that was a really good decision by the Swedish delegation. But also I love Loreen. I don't hate her as a winner. But I think that choice definitely put her at a really huge advantage, because the stage was just so big and so wide that it was really, really difficult to utilize it in a way that would really work for a lot of the other songs. Interval acts. I liked the one where they had all of the past winners come and sing from the past 5 years. Mostly what I remember about that is that Dima Bilan was really drunk, but I also remember watching it and having a good time while watching it. So those are my thoughts.
So just echoing Shiloh's statement, I don't think the hosts were bad, like what is prevalent in a lot of fandom. I don't think they were phenomenal, but I think they were good for the type of Eurovision that it is. If you were to put them in a more modern Eurovision, which is more expected, what's more expected of hosts, I think they probably wouldn't have been great. But for the time, what they were doing wasn't that bad. I do actually disagree on the stage itself. I love it, and I think it's one of my most favorite ones. Particularly what I love most about it is it allows bright performances. If you look in the last few years particularly, the stages are really good at setting a mood and dark and just making it quite moody, but if you want a really bright, light, happy sort of staging, it's not as easy to do because of the darkness. But I think 2012 is one of the last good ones we've had where the stage can actually support brightness, and I think it is because it is so open, which I really like about it, and it gives an opportunity to do a lot more with it. And I do concede that I think it was possibly too big for a lot of the acts, but I feel that's the delegation's fault rather than an actual fault of Azerbaijan hosting itself. For the interval acts and opening acts, I think they did a really good job at balancing the showcase of like traditional culture while also having like sort of more modern take on it. At the time, I really loved Emre Galarov, so I was absolutely ecstatic that he was going to perform and thought his interval act was really good. Although, now, given what we now know about him, I kind of wish that he wasn't part of the contest, and it sort of stains me for a little bit. But in terms of the rest, I absolutely adore the opening to the final, and I think it might actually be one of my most favourite openings to a Eurovision show. I know I'm a bit biased because I love Running Scared, but the way that they had this confluence of like traditional and modern culture, just how they did it, I think was handled really well. What I would really criticise with the way they handled the opening acts, though, is they didn't do any in the semi-finals, which I think is just quite flat when you just go straight into it. And I get that they were following the last couple of years, but I think given they were putting so much effort and so much spectacle into it, they could have done more to give more of an oomph to the opening of the show itself.
I would have to agree that the interval acts were missing. Like I thought, like when I went through the page, Wikipedia page, I was surprised that 2012 didn't have a lot of interval acts, like one or two per show. So it was missing for me, like the amount of the intervals that would happen. Like I really appreciate the traditional sounds that Azerbaijan brought to their interval acts. I like the winning reprise, and I like them combining the winning songs with the traditional Azerbaijani sounds. Comes to the stage, I would have to agree with Shiloh. I thought the stage was very hard to work with. Like in a lot of cases, the staging felt empty, like in a lot of performances. Like first things that comes to my mind is Iceland's performance. Like they didn't know how to stage that with the stage. Like they put the backing vocalist on one side and Geta Yancy just was on the same side. Like they weren't really showing the other side. It was very empty with just the backing vocalist being on one side. So, but I think one of the countries that did well with staging was Ukraine. They really elevated the staging with the props that Gaetana had. Like that really helped with making the stage more prominent with the performance. Like Shelna mentioned, Lorin was another example of how we can work with that with staging. Sweden that year really, and overall, I think this year also, like they showed intimate performances, making the stage not feeling giant, just focusing on the performance and making sections for just her, like a very small section of the stage. And I thought Lorin did very well, and they did the same job this year with Cornelia and with just making her the center of the stage, with despite the stage being giant for the song like that. We talked about this year a lot, but with Hold Me Closer, and for the same songs that need smaller staging to be elevated. The hosts, I don't have an opinion about them. I don't remember much about them. Like I said, maybe Shiloh said like the English problems maybe is because it's the reason that why most people don't enjoy them that much. They did okay. I didn't. They are not as memorable as maybe other years, like next year or the one that happened in a few years later in 2016 or 2014. Not 14, 13 is a very good example of great hosts. Okay, so we talked about that. Let's dive into another topic that when it comes to 2012, which are the postcards, which are very controversial topics for in fandom. What do you think about them?
So the postcards. When Janek first pitched this episode in the site group chat, a number of us actually got like side backtracked debating about the postcards and like whether we liked them or not. I personally am on team I don't like the 2012 postcards. I don't outright hate them. I just think that there were better things that Azerbaijan could have done. I think that they were a little bit lackluster, especially because in part, so the postcards were like videos of different places in Azerbaijan, right? And one of the things that really kind of needled me when I watched the show is that they reused a lot of the same shots of the videos. And that was kind of disappointing to me. I wish that they could have found other things to take videos of, I guess, instead of just reusing some of the same shots over and over. Another really common criticism is that the postcards didn't really incorporate the artists at all, or whatever country it was introducing at all. Yeah, I think I wish that they had incorporated the artists and the participating countries a little bit more, and I wish that there had been a little more work put into those postcards, because I know that postcards from that era, like the ones from 2008 and 2009, were really creative and I really loved them. But 2012, it just felt a little flat, I guess, is what I'll say. It felt, they weren't like terrible, it just felt like they weren't really doing enough.
I think my opinion on this matter might be controversial from the discussions I've had recently, but for me, 2012 had the best postcards. I do understand where a lot of people come from when they say the opinion that they should have the artist incorporated in some way, but for me, it's just 40 seconds of the postcard. You don't really get much, and from 2 months, I don't really see what the likes of Duncan Lawrence badly doing the Macarena or Hussey playing basketball really gives the audience. This guy's trying to like a way of like, oh, it showcases the artist, but how is seeing Hussey badly play basketball promoting the artists? And for me, I think that the postcard should either be something completely abstract, like the sort of the iconic 2009 ones with Showcase the Country, or it should be something that showcases the host itself. And I think they did a really good opportunity. Yes, I think they should have had a lot more unique ones, but also I think it's better that they did keep them as abstract as they did, rather than focusing on like this is a monastery that you should visit, this is like this specific thing, because then it just comes off as sort of like a really cheap tourism video, which I think if you then look back at some of like say Istanbul, like they look really cheap because it's so focused on the this is a tourism video rather than like this is our country. And I think they showcase the fact that it is Azerbaijan really, really well.
I'm trying to find my words that would be the most appropriate for the podcast, but no, I didn't like the podcast 2012. Just not like I feel like the podcasts were every single one was very similar to each other, like they didn't show any difference between them. I am a big fan of postcards that bring the artist into the city, into the other parts of the country. Like I really liked, like I bring this topic a lot, but Junior Eurovision 2017. Like when they implement the artists to the postcards, they showing the postcards is interacting with the people who are doing the sketches for the postcards. It was the artist in the postcard was missing. I don't mean like this year's postcard when they just green screen a head on a random hill, who knows where. Let the artists walk through the city, like interact with the vendors or get them into some kind of museum or whatever. There was one, I don't remember which year was that I know it was postcards or it was like promotional videos, but I think it was 2019 that the artists were opening the door and getting some kind of package, and I like that kind of. 2015, yeah. Thank you, Euan. I really enjoyed this kind of podcast also, like interactions between the artists and the country they are in. Like we don't know. Like you can pull up a random postcard for 2012, show it to me, and I will say, okay, this is Azerbaijan, but which artist is performing right now? I would like to know from the postcard who is performing right now, and I would like to see them interact with the country. So postcard aside, we should move on to the songs finally. I think a lot of people would agree that 2012 is a very strong year. I would agree with them, but before we talk about our absolute favorites of this year, I would like to start with the semifinals. So we had 18 countries per semifinal, Big Five plus Azerbaijan in the final. So we lost 8 countries per semifinal, and I have a question. Throughout these 16 songs that didn't qualify, which ones you were sad the most, and who did you enjoy the most from the non-qualifiers?
So, looking through my notes here, some of the ones that I really enjoyed that didn't qualify, I liked Belarus. It's not like a big standout to me, but I think it was an okay song, and I liked it better than some of the other things that qualified from that semifinal. I think one of my actually most controversial Eurovision opinions about 2012 is that I don't like Turkey's song, and I definitely feel like Belarus should have qualified over Turkey, but that's just me. Other songs I like that didn't qualify, I liked Finland. I think Finland is the other one that I do feel like kind of got robbed. The last time I watched 2012, I put in my notes that I thought that Finland was another country that did staging exceptionally well this year and really found a way to work with the stage and work with the camera in ways that I really enjoyed. And I'm disappointed that we didn't get to see that one in the final. I thought Finland's entry was pretty good, but I don't have it for 2012. I don't really have a lot of songs where I'm like, oh, I'm so angry that this didn't qualify. I think that I think that for the most part, I am satisfied with the songs that ended up in the final for the most part, and I sort of have stronger feelings on later years. But yeah, Finland is my big one.
For me, the only song from the first semi-final that I would say really deserved to be in the final was Israel. It's such a quirky, unusual song, and I just love it so much. I think it would have added so much to being in the final. For semi-final 2, it's a little bit difficult because there's 4 songs that I think absolutely should have been in the final, but I can only take away 2 that I think don't deserve to be, and that would be like Ukraine and Sweden. But I would think that Belarus, Portugal, Bulgaria, and Croatia, sorry, actually 5, Slovakia, all should have been in the final. Wow, Janek's face. Belarus, though, I will concede, I cannot stand the version that they sent to Eurovision, the original one from Eurofest, which, by the way, was one of the best national finals of the year, and I highly recommend people go back to watch it. But the version sent to Eurovision was absolutely atrocious. Bulgaria, it's Sofia Marinova. Honestly, I mean, everyone at this point, if you're listening, you know why Sofia Marinova should have been in the final. She's iconic. She's amazing. With Croatia, there wasn't enough of that strong, powerful female power ballad in it. I think it would have added more to the final. Slovakia, I just like it. I don't really know what it's just good.
So I have in my top 10. I have 2 songs that didn't qualify. One of them is Finland. I thought Nele Bunder was one of the best songs in 2012. I'm really surprised that didn't qualify. I thought she was great. She was perfect in the performance. I know what happened. This is Blackbird effect for me from 2017. With how much she's Blackbird and Regunda, I just got so depressed because I remember that it qualified. My other song that is in my top 10 for 2012 that didn't qualify is Portugal. I am overall a big fan of Portugal in Eurovision. Vitamina is one of the best songs that they sent for me. I thought it was one of my favorites until maybe Ojardin, but Mara happened later, and that became my favorite. I have an opinion about Salvador Sobral's songs, but I am not. It's not 2017. We're talking 2012. Vitamina is amazing. I can echo Bulgaria. I thought a polyglot queen speaking in so many languages, it's a dream that didn't deserve to not qualify. I thought it would be a great entry. Croatia is also good shout. I forgot about that. Slovenia is one of my favorites as well. I to this day I forget that this didn't qualify. I think overall, I'm trying to think who I would swap with my choices. I think when it comes to semi two, I would for sure swap Turkey with Bulgaria. For semi one, I would swap maybe. Oh my god, it's hard. I think I would swap Ireland with Finland. Sorry to Jedward stands, but I am not a big fan of the line. So our semi-final and robbery aside, let's talk about our favorite entries overall in the contest. Maybe so I would say maybe top 3 to 5, depends how many songs you think.
So one of my absolute favorites from 2012 is Denmark's entry, Should Have Known Better. One of my I placed it like second. Great song. I liked the staging was like a little funky, but I liked the sort of vibe they had going with everybody like sitting on the furniture and having a good time. Really, really lovely song that I like a lot. Cyprus, La La Love, also one I really like. And Estonia, Kula, took some time to grow on me. And I think that the reason I ended up actually liking it was Janek's fault. In like 2017, when we were friends the first time, I was listening to it a lot because of you. And I wound up really, really enjoying it after I gave it a few listens for that reason. Honorable mentions. I liked Germany a lot. I also liked Malta. I think the Maltese entry that year was kind of underrated favorite. I liked his cute little dance. I didn't have it ranked very high. I had it like 18th or something. But it's like, I don't know, it's fun. Overall, I liked a lot of the songs in 2012. I didn't like love them, but there were a lot that I just really solidly enjoyed.
Trying to pick 3 to 5 is difficult, so I'm just going to give an honorary mention to Switzerland and Hungary. Hungary was the first song I ever voted for in Eurovision, but the top 5, it's got to be Albania. I mean, the pure emotion and the depth to that song, it's hard to even describe just how it makes me feel. It's just so evocative. I loved it so much, and even though it did have a devamp from Vic to Eurovision, it still managed to retain so much of the power and the energy in her voice. I just love it so much. Second one would be Iceland. Again, I did think there's a bit of a devamp from the national final to Eurovision itself, because I think it lost a bit from going from Icelandic into English. Muntefti Mir, there's so much more power and energy, in particularly Euan's voice, and there's just more cutting like the parts of the song. France, I will concede, vocal performance was not good, but I just love that performance so much. Also, one of the weirdest music videos possible, and I just love it. It's just iconic. Azerbaijan, oh my god, the inclusion of Mugam, which I love so much, is the vocal elements and just her voice, her power. Just can't describe it. But the first, it's got to be the one and only. It's for a whole decade. My favorite has been Estonia. I love him so much. Kula he speaks to me on such a level. I just love it. Just everything about the performance and just his energy, his presence on stage is just perfect. And the fact that he didn't win, it cuts me to the bone. It hurts me so much, and I really want him to return, but we'll get to that.
I'm a bit speechless because I wasn't expecting this answer from you, and I thought he would say someone else. But yeah, when it comes to 2012, like there's a lot of songs that I want to mention. I'm gonna just mention 9 other songs because I am that extra. Azerbaijan, Albania, Lithuania, Moldova, Portugal, Italy, Iceland, Finland, and Denmark. But I can just throw them into the ether. That one that are my also favorites from this year. My fifth place of 12 is Cyprus. I think I remember hearing this song in the radio somewhere. Before I got into the Eurovision, overall, I am just in love. I think that her energy and her the song overall is above. Just to say, the staging could be better, but I thought it was very, very, very fun way of performing. I'm sorry, I don't know how to English sometimes. Number 4 is Sweden, Euphoria, an amazing anthem, one of the better from Eurovision to overall becoming an overall pop anthem, not only for the Euro fans, like there is more local, became more like Monsky, became more broadly known. I forgot the word for it. My third place is Germany. One of the better songs from Germany that they did in the tens. Of course, amazing comeback from Lena to Roman Lob. Sandy Cindy is a very great pop song, and I enjoyed the performance and the song, and the vocalist was on point throughout the whole performance, so I have no against. My number 2, I am very surprised that you didn't mention this, because this is one of the best songs come from Eurovision. Pastora Soler is one of the best singers that walks on this earth. Karate Comico is one of the best songs that came from Eurovision. Every time I would listen to it, I'm looping her. The final note that she's doing, the note she's amazing. It would have been my winner overall, but my number 1 is Estonia, because it has been my favorite song from Eurovision for a long time. I got into Eurovision in 2014, 15, and when I rewatched the reels since 2016, this was my favorite Eurovision song up until this year. That was dethroned by Cornelia. But I am so emotionally attached to Hula. I am just stunned by his voice. The song is so emotionally proven. It's very, very great song. He's an amazing singer, and I'm really sad that it only came was it six? I think it was 6, because Estonia has a curse of finishing not higher than 6. With 2015 also happened. Also, they got 6. Yeah, I'm very emotionally attached to Kula. Like Shiloh mentioned, I was terrorizing everyone with it back in 2016-17. This year kind of shifted. Maybe not last year also. I think Vala kind of also tied with Kula last year, and this year Colombia came and became one of my favorite, became the favorite song from Eurovision. But Kula still holds a very, very special place in my heart, because I'm so emotionally attached to it, and I have very great memory and fun memory with the song. So at the we are coming to an end to our episode. We have 2 questions left. Just a little bit more controversial question that I can remember. What Azerbaijan did extremely not great, not well, that they could improve in the future when they could host again Eurovision, or if junior in the future that they could host. What could they improve, and what do you have offered? Maybe you have suggestions that they could maybe change in the way they are staging or overall producing the Eurovision.
Mostly, I would just want them to try and find a better venue. That's really my big thing. I said what I said about the postcards, but also those are just sort of things that as the contest evolves, like the postcards and what we expect out of postcards evolves. And I wasn't into Eurovision at that time. When this contest aired, I was 12 years old and living in Pennsylvania in the United States and had never heard of Eurovision in my life. So I think that finding a better venue and having a better stage would really be the big thing for me.
For me, while I don't think there's anything wrong with the hosting itself, I think because Eurovision has progressed so much, they do need to improve how the hosting works and how have hosts that can better interact with the audience, because it's not how it was back then. Also, just improving the little bits between the contests, so the not quite ad libs, but the between act, when they have their little asides to the audience and things like that. They need to be a bit more of those and to create a more cohesive show. I also do think that when they do host again, which hopefully is very soon, because I love the way they did host, I think they need to lean more into sort of more traditional side of it, because although I do love how they implemented it, I feel making something that is more distinctly Azeri would be more of an entertaining show, I feel, than just sort of like a box standard show with some Azeri elements, which I fear is something that could potentially happen. Yeah, that's how I would improve.
I don't think I have anything more to say. I think maybe trying to find hosts that talk English, but that's very harsh from me. But maybe
They spoke really good French, though.
Yeah.
That's another thing I have in my notes, is that the French on these hosts, they were great at the French.
Yeah.
So props to them.
Yeah, it's very surprising because one of the hosts is the lawyer lady. She is Azeri American, so that's why I'm like, it could be better. It could be obviously it could be better, but I think maybe finding someone that could handle hosting that in English, because I think maybe mostly they took the most popular presenters that in Azerbaijan that year. I don't know Azeri celebs, especially they brought Ellen because he won last year. When it comes, I think maybe postcards bringing more approach to what I talked most of the podcasts. When it comes to the stagings, I think maybe try the different stages, like maybe something that works better. No sounds. I know it's a land of fire, but no fire. But that's another point that they love to tell us, that Azerbaijan is the land of fire. That also was a very prominent point throughout the contest. When it comes, maybe some more interval acts show us more of the Azeri music scene. Like this year, we had so many great Italian artists that are brilliantly performing during the intervals. So I thought maybe bringing someone isn't performing for Azerbaijan in Eurovision for intervals. And last rapid fire question: who do you want to come back in the near future for Eurovision that participated in 2012?
So, I mean, first of all, we have to shout out Calliope and Donny Montel, who did come back. Great, both of them, love them both. But in terms of artists who haven't made a return yet, I would really like to see Pastora Soler come back, and I would really like to see Sabina Babayeva come back. I think the two of them were some of the best vocalists in the 2012 contests, and they just really, really strong, breath support and vocal skills. I don't say this lightly. I have 10 years of classical choral training. They're really good, and I would like to see both of them come back at some point, because I think that they were really skilled, and yeah, both of them did place well, but I would like to see them come back because they're good.
I mean, I'll just get the first one out of the way. Sofia Maranova needs to return. Honestly, what more do we need to say on the topic? It would just be one of the most iconic returns since. I actually am struggling to think of an even more iconic return. Exactly. She needs to be in the next contest, because the amount of energy that she'll bring and the complete fandom collapse, it would just be perfect. I would really love Loman Rob to return. I just thought he sang so beautifully, and it was just such a nice performance, and I don't think he got what he was deserving, both from points itself, but also I feel he could probably return with a stronger song that could do really well, because I do like Standing Still, but he could do better. Last one. I don't actually know if this one is completely possible, because a couple of members left, and the two remaining members of Isabeau, I don't actually know if they're still making music, because they haven't released anything or really updated anything in 2-3 years. But I would love the remnants of Isabeau to return, because they're just so quirky and weird, and I love them so much. All of their older work is just fun to listen to, and it's just they need to be back. I want weird energy in Eurovision. Yeah, those are the ones I want to return.
We just talked about this in our little chat. 2012 and 2016 had so many artists that were connected. Like we had Greta, Calliope, and Donny in 2016 that performed 2012. 2012 had a lot of returnees overall, like Jelkio, Yunsi, Jedward, of course. One of the backing vocalists also represented at Eurovision, Slovenia Eurovision 2009. Of course, the Queen of San Marino. It was her debut. 2012 was is iconic itself for the debut of Valentina Moeta. Of course, Loreen came back later for Melfest. I'm trying to remember who else later in some semis. Sasha also tried to represent Switzerland 2012, from what I remember. But when it comes to who I want to come back, of course, Pastora Soler is my number one pick, because I want to see something new from her. Something new music for Eurovision. I don't care if it's a Gison written song. I want the power ballad that is as similar as Karate Mingo. I would say Odd Lepland. I want to see him back, but this may be controversial. I'm sorry if somehow Odd sing. I'm sorry, but Odd's only songs that is good is cool. Like most of his songs rather yeah, I didn't let Algo Versus this year also, so I'm like maybe something else. Give me the spice that Kula had. I would say Lorraine, maybe I want to see her again, but I don't know. She has a very specific sound right now. She leans more into the electropop than classical that she had. Like one of the great songs for him is Sot Van Tatar. I think that's how you somehow you could pronounce it's of course it's in Swedish, so a bit of different than My Heart's Refusing Me, Euphoria, Statements. Who else is a great shot? I want to see Pernilla back from Finland, maybe something similar, maybe Finnish. I really want to see Finnish in Eurovision very soon, especially when at the day of the recording, some leaks from UMK happened that one of the performances is very sexy and sexually driven, and there is one artist that I'm thinking of, and I'm happy that it's her, and I know she will be delivering Finnish slatbanger. Anyways, and I forgot, if Bosnia ever comes back, I want to see Maja. Korakat is Nami is one of best. I think he's one of the best Bosnian song that sent. Of course, Nina Ziri. I want to also see something from her. She can add to Sanremo very soon, please. Yeah, I think that's everything that I would say for who I want to return. So I'm going to the boring outro. I want to thank Shiloh and Euan for participating in this episode. Do you have any last thoughts, final goodbyes you want to share?
Thanks so much for having me on today. I'm walking away from this conversation being like, oh, I have to go watch 2012 again. I think it's definitely, even though I had literally written notes about what I thought about this contest, I do think that I remember this year as being weaker than it actually is. And through this conversation, I'm remembering all of these songs that I actually really liked. And I'm like, oh, well, now I know what I'm doing with my night. I'm going to go watch 2012. So that's great. Thanks again for having us on today, Janek.
I'd also like to say thank you for letting me on and talk about just how much I love these songs. It's such a special year to me, and I just really want to see something with this energy, this everything that it gave us again. And I'm probably going to listen to Kula for about 3 hours on repeat.
Thank you again. I am really happy that I could talk about 2012. And overall, I am really enjoying making and taking part in this podcast. I think some team will be like, Janek, you should stop taking part in this podcast. Let other people join, because I've been in so many lately. I just really like talking about Eurovision. That's why I'm enjoying these episodes. So I think we should be ending with our episode. So don't forget to follow us on social media at NatEuropodcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also follow that Eurovision site for the latest news about Eurovision. We have an amazing season before us. We have Junior Eurovision happening in early December. And of course, we are into the Eurovision 2023 season. There's a lot of national finals happening very soon, like Ukraine in like November or something. Czech Republic is also having a selection soon. Of course, we have FIC in December. And our site is, of course, thateurovisionsite.com, and follow the site on our social medias. We have @thateurosite on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even TikTok. So follow us on these social medias. Thank you for listening, and see you next week. Goodbye.